listening to the motherfucking best. All right, today we've got special guest Burt Reynolds, who insists on being called for Turgeson. So I don't know exactly what's going on with that, but we're just gonna roll with it. So
Crazy
how's it?
since Burt Reynolds is dead.
How's it going today, Ferd?
It's just swell. Just
All right.
swell.
So we were actually,
Internet connection's still struggling with this phone call.
well, luckily it's not struggling
Oh,
on this end.
is that me? Nope, that's nope. Well, okay, good, perfect. Well, send
Yeah,
it then.
it looks great on this end. So we were actually just having a discussion offline, and we decided to bring it online and involve the greater world in our warped minds. So we were talking about politics and the idea of a return to moderism, moderate politics, return to center, find common ground that we can stand on in the middle, and stop following these politicians as they drag us farther and farther away from each other as we become more tribal and less national. Um, the only way for us to recapture, any sort of control over the way that the societal discussion in America is happening is to return to center and actually discuss with each other. We can't wait for a president to save us. Presidents can't remove people from office. So if you believe there is a greater amount of corruption in the government, then it's up to us, the electors, to elect better people and to remove people that we're either certain are corrupt and have some weird things going on, or we just have enough questions about that we can't trust them. So, um, I guess where do you stand on that? Like, do you agree with that
Uh,
kind of a statement, or you think I'm way off
yeah.
base?
No, that seems reasonable. Yeah, no, that seems like a good summary of what we were talking about there for however long.
And we were also going to discuss, both Biden and Trump, where Trump is the
Yeah,
prior president that everyone half the country hated, half the country obviously liked because he got
you could say
elected.
that about either.
Right, and then
You could say
Biden
that about
Biden
either.
is the same thing. Biden is exactly the same thing. So that's my point with the division and the return to moderation is whether you currently are a MAGA supporter and you want to vote for Trump, or whether you're a Biden supporter, or on the Democratic side you want to support a different candidate, we seem to be
Honestly, they
supporting.
both seem too old to me.
I agree. Uh, I like
Ridiculously.
I like Vivek, but I just have some questions about why he's being allowed to say some of the things that he's allowed to say when other people are clearly um, almost immediately punished for saying similar types of things. They do not, like, Vivek is able to criticize the machine in ways that most people would get some blowback from or be censored. And he's got videos up where he's criticizing the vaccine process, he's criticizing the establishment, claiming corruption, claiming we're on the verge of a revolution. We're in a 1775 moment, and there are definitely people that don't have his visibility who would not be allowed to say some of these things. So that's why I have some questions about him, but I do like him, and I would like to find a candidate that is not absolutely hated by about 50% of the country, and that is the situation for both Biden and Trump. So voting for them is
Yeah,
voting for division, whether you think your team is winning or not. You're voting
totally.
for more division. And so, like, like RFK, he's a Democrat. I would vote for him. I don't even know who's running me.
I don't even know how he counts as a Democrat. He's off in his own weird conspiracyville. But mm, I don't think there is a good moderate candidate right now. Not one that I'm aware of.
Other than
Feels like,
other than the vaccine stuff, what's his conspiracy stuff that you don't like? I understand a lot of
but it's
people.
mostly the vaccine stuff. Like a
Okay,
lot of the like nothing he has pushed that I have seen has a whole lot of
so
validity at least.
is the vaccination viewpoint of the president important in the country, given that we seem to have been operating just fine for the past,
And
you know, year?
I don't think so.
So I
No, that specifically, no. But being willing to buy into something that flies in the face of 85 to 100 years of strong, consistent evidence, seems like you're willing to ignore anything. I'm not saying all vaccines are good. I'm saying that blanket statements like all vaccines are bad is impossibly stupid, because we definitely have evidence of them being beneficial. For example, you and no one you know has had polio.
Yes, true. So that was a vaccine that
And
actually stopped
you
this,
and no one you know had mumps or measles.
but that
Like, these are really,
those vaccines actually
sorry.
prevented um, the continued transmission of it. So that's the only difference I
Yeah.
see. And the other thing, I don't want to get too much into the vax stuff because this is highly censored. So if I make any claims that are not aligned with the WHO, even supported with scientific abstracts of current studies, you can have your video taken down because you are only allowed to make claims that align with the WHO, NIH, and that is part of the YouTube terms of service. I have had a video taken down for it because I was actually commenting on the Lex Friedman RFK podcast, and I only made a few minor comments, way less than what RFK was saying, and my video got taken down. I went and looked, and the Lex Friedman podcast is still up. I have a strike against my channel for having a video forcibly removed because of I violated YouTube
Forcibly.
terms of
Makes it
service.
sound like they have their own, like,
There's no nice way to
arms
do it.
team.
They're just like, boom, and I asked for a
I just like
review.
the idea of you getting swatted and they're like, fuck you, we're taking this video down.
I asked for a review. They wouldn't tell me exactly what portion of the video was the problem, so I didn't dare to repost it with a cut section removed. So it's just not on YouTube anymore. I put it on Twitter, and it was that was my first experience. So now I'm like hesitant to even go down that path. That's for other people. It's not the primary focus of certainly my worldview at this point, unless requirements come back that force you to do this stuff. I agree with taking, the most of literally everything except that one. That one's the only one. It's the most recent one. Just doesn't have a lot of time in study. So there's just some questions, and then I had my own experience where I had some problems directly after the shot, which are supposedly unrelated. Anyway, we can move on. So we were talking about the idea of
Did you report that to VAERS? You should have.
I did. I told my doctor, please
Good.
enter this information into the adverse event report, whatever the hell.
It's VAERS, VAERS, vaccine adverse effects something system. I don't remember. It's been a while. Report system, I think.
Yeah, reporting system. Yeah. So so other than RFK's standpoint on vaccines, which I kind of give him a little bit of a pass on conspiracies, to be honest, because his uncle was killed, and we still don't have the full
His
report
whole
on that.
family's been killed.
Right. So with JFK specifically, though, I think Biden just actually sealed the record again, and indicating that there's not probably individuals that are the problem. It's probably institutions that still exist today that may receive blowback if the full information comes out. So there's
About
definitely
what
some
exactly? Sorry.
the JFK files that are like
Ugh.
that give all the information about what happened on those days. Those
Yeah,
there's
I mean,
still a
fair
lot
enough, I
of
guess.
confidential information that is not subject to the Freedom of Information Act requests. You cannot get certain things. It's all behind a paywall or whatever you want, a government wall, whatever you want to call it.
I like a paywall. Makes the government sound like Rockstar Games.
And then I did the other thing is, since we're on the topic and you wanted to see this, I'm just going to show you here. Can you see that
Oh,
right
God,
now?
that's so tiny. I mean,
let me try. Hold on. Can I do this?
Looking at it from 40,000 feet here.
Okay. So this is just a screenshot. Can you see that at all?
Yeah, I can see it. Testing my
Let me
close-up
make it
vision, but
even better.
perfect. That's much better.
So here's 2021 right here, and this is the influenza surveillance report. So I'm making no claims, and I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to show.
I mean, we were in the middle of COVID, and all the things that spread the flu were things that we were aggressively addressing with COVID, right? I mean, everybody was wearing masks. Everybody was washing their hands. Everybody was staying the fuck home.
But
If
then
you were sick, they were like,
wouldn't
stay the fuck home. So no, how do you spread a
so
disease
the
that is
virus
spread through interpersonal contact if you don't have that?
the particle, because it's not neither is able to stay on surfaces for very long. It's mostly aerosolized contact. So
Or
wouldn't you also see in 2021 a flat line if those measures were effective in stopping transmission of either, because both are the same size, right?
size is less relevant than how quickly how the
You
dosage size required for
you should have seen a
uh,
flat if those measures were mitigating it to that point, that you should have seen a flat line for 2021 if we did a report on the other one as well.
oh, I see.
You know what I
I
mean?
forgot we
Both
can't say that. No, no, no. Okay,
both should have
it took me a
flatlined.
moment. I'm kind of slow. I've been,
Yeah.
it's the gin.
So I
Um,
agree, but if those measures were that effective, then we should have seen a flat line in both,
maybe.
especially with the
I'm
the
not versed enough in this to speak
the smack scene.
confidently, and
Yeah, so let's just move on. But I'm just saying you wanted
yeah,
to see the chart. That's the chart.
I
So
I am interested, and yeah, we can discuss this more. It's something that I would like to read up on more. I just don't know the difference in onset or infection, like how virulent are the two comparatively. I want to read up on it.
my
I want to
only
discuss it in a format that we can put on YouTube.
my only point would be that you should just be able to ask questions. And right now it's very
Oh,
difficult,
totally.
and
It's
in
fucked up
some
that
cases,
YouTube won't let us save the thing.
even if you make a ridiculous question, like, you know, I'm not even going to come up with
How
one,
many
but
purple balloons does it take to save you from
right. And if that applies,
Romid 20?
if you can't ask a ridiculous question about purple balloons, right? Then there's a problem. Something's being hidden about purple balloons, and you can use that for anything. So any subject in America should not be off limits to ask a ridiculous question, because that should be the easiest to answer. A ridiculous question, here you go. Here's information that disproves, look, here's a picture. There's two purple balloons. You're making a claim that there's three. You're obviously on some sort of drugs or
Who's
what.
that?
So anyway, let's move on from this. This came up because of RFK. Let's move on to Biden and Trump. My opinion on Biden is that he is a political animal from a different generation. He literally was part of Senator Byrd's eulogy, who was a KKK member, during the school busing. I'm sorry, I'm going to go over
It was
to
a different
this.
time.
What's that?
It was a different time.
It was a different time, but you still, like, even us,
Literally. It was
even
60.
even you and I came from, we were born in the 80s, so we grew up in a time, and we are an animal of a different time than now, and he's even further removed. So even if he is progressive and has caught up with this, there was a time in which, and this is the busing of school children, hearing before the Committee of the Judiciary, United States Senate, 95th Congress, first session. This is the direct transcript. And at the bottom, because this is a contested thing, something about a racial jungle, um,
Give me a
the
minute.
the actual
Hi,
you're good. You can just mute.
I'm on a
You can just
wearing my hat.
you can just mute, Brad.
Justin.
Just
What?
mute. Just mute up, and I'm gonna read, and then you
How
can
do
come
I
back when
do
you're ready.
that? Oh, my mistake.
Perfect. So unless we do something about this, my children are going to grow up in a jungle. The jungle being a racial jungle, with tensions having built so high that it is going to explode at some point. We have got to make a move on this. You say I am throwing a brick, and this is Biden, by the way. I am not as good at analogies and homilies as all of you are, but I think pushing busing in a way in which it goes beyond all the constitutional mandates is like throwing a bus through the civil rights window. I think it has repercussions that are extensive in terms of the ultimate objective of seeing that we get integrated neighborhoods, of seeing that we eventually eliminate job discrimination, of seeing that we change housing patterns, of seeing alteration of the tax structure. Um, so he did say the racial jungle comment, and he did also object to busing. So he was anti-busing during a period where Senator Byrd and others who were anti-integration um, we're opposing busing and saying that we should do this on a real estate basis. We should integrate neighborhoods. But if you couldn't even bus children to school, how are you supposed to integrate neighborhoods directly? So I don't like that part of his record. I don't like that he's now kind of trying to claim that white supremacy is the most dangerous terrorist threat in a speech at Howard University. Um, NPR goes through his record and goes through and has definitely he has definitely become his views have become more tolerable. But to say that he doesn't have questionable things in his history is disingenuous. I also don't like the questions with Hunter um, and the son's business dealings, all that stuff. I have some questions about that. I'm not going to jump to any conclusions. Everybody in America is innocent until proven guilty. I would just like to hear an impartial investigation on some of that stuff. He has lied, starting with his first presidential campaign, in which I believe he plagiarized a speech and he had to stop that. He's lied about his academic record, saying that he was part of the top part of his class and had a scholarship, when in reality he was in the bottom 10% of his graduating class. Um, so those are the problems that I have with Joe Biden. Um, he's not he's not Satan. He's just part of a larger machine, and changing the president doesn't change the overall um, theme of the party. Both parties, in fact. Um, they seem to be just inciting division. And we can move over to Trump and talk about the same things. Like, I think that Trump's nationalist policies are good to try and create equitable trade. If someone's going to put a 20% tariff on us, it's good for us to reciprocate that and just say, let's treat each other with equality. Let's not have one party that has a tariff and the other party that doesn't. So I like some of his policies, but I don't like him as a person. Clearly, he cannot control his mouth. Um, he definitely incites and inflames division. Um,
Yeah, that's the
in,
part that I have the biggest issue with, really.
right,
Um,
and if he could just be a unifier, he'd be someone I could support a lot more. The only reason that I support him at all right now is just because it seems weird, out of all the perceived corruption from my end, and this is just my perspective, but from my position, the perceived corruption extends past just Donald Trump. I think that if we are going to dig into government corruption, there should be a few more indictments and a few more investigations, even as far as to go to, like, oh, Nancy Pelosi's husband is worth $235 million. Like, did that happen with insider trading? Should we take a look at that? Should we take a look at any politician who's making
I
$175,000 a
that just
year and
this just
suddenly
sounds too
becomes a
vague to me.
millionaire? To
It
what?
sounds too vague. I mean, I'm not. It, the things that Trump is being tried for were A, very blatant, and B, have ample publicly available evidence. So to me, it seems it would be ridiculous not to try him.
What about Hunter's
Whereas,
laptop?
so I don't know what's on it. I can't really speak to it. I don't know how it implicates anyone. I mean, maybe it does. I don't know. If it does, it should absolutely be relevant and uh,
Um, so
prosecutable. But I'm not as familiar with it because I got fed up with all this bullshit like midway, like early in the Trump presidency, and I just kind of it was over it. I just
yep. They
wasn't
so
interested.
so Hunter Biden is being indicted on gun charges currently,
I'm aware of that.
and that's the only charge that they can indict him for, which his father has nothing to do with. You
What
you
are the others that there's evidence for? And
so
what's the evidence?
the um the Hunter Biden laptop has jeez,
That's right. I came up here to charge my phone and didn't even plug it in.
who
Oop.
was the So there was a gentleman who came before Congress, and he had the other end. Well, you've got Devin Archer who's talking. Oh man, I'm sorry. This is like I wasn't prepared for this. So like 2 years ago, there was a guy who had three cell phones with messages from the other end of Hunter Biden's cell phone. He was part of Hunter Biden's operations in Ukraine and China and had messages corroborating what was on the laptop and what was on his cell phone. On this gentleman's cell phone was the other end of the laptop messages because they were MacBooks, so it was iMessage, which syncs to your computer. There's also like 15,000 emails or something like that. Um, there's a website, it's a nonprofit that has gone through all the data on the Hunter Biden
Hmm?
laptop, and I have a link to that. I would just have to get it to you later if I understand most people don't want to waste their time going down that rabbit hole.
Really want to go down that rabbit hole.
But I just would like an investigation. I don't want to assume anyone's guilt. It just is like not being taken seriously, and if we're going to take the Trump charges seriously, that's fine. But I just want fairness and equality of like what's this Hunter Biden thing that initially had
Do we
50.
know that it's not being investigated? I mean, if he's being brought up on these
It
gun
is.
charges,
It is. The charges are forthcoming. I'm just
okay,
saying I want it to be investigated by a neutral third
sounds like it
party
is.
who is not. So hopefully it is. I'm just not hopeful that
I mean,
any.
a lot of the Justice Department's still Trump appointees, or
Mm,
at least
yes, yes and no. In
some
certain
of it is.
states,
Some of it is.
the state level prosecutions, Trump didn't appoint state elected officials, so that's all.
That's fair.
The judicial things that are happening at the state level are not appointed by Trump for sure. So state supreme courts and those type of decisions about what happened in Arizona, what happened in Georgia, what happened in these Pennsylvania, these different states where these lawsuits are open, and the prosecute like Georgia is the state that I know I think he has the most charges for. So anyway, uh, to that all that discussion just to say like I really don't love either one of them. Um, I wish that we could find a candidate that we could actually support and take seriously, even if they had to run as an independent. It just I don't I'm not hopeful that America is going to walk away from either party, and if we don't walk away from either party, then we're going to continue to get further apart. And the reason that
Probably.
the reason I also don't care.
Although, I mean, we've been pretty fucking divided for a long. I mean, between the two parties. Uh,
Yes, I would
I
agree.
mean,
I,
now they may have switched, but the division is no less appreciable.
yeah, I think they have switched as far as position wise, like traditional liberal
No, I mean they
and
absolutely have.
has
It
become
was
really
in like
weird.
what was it, the 1880s? Something like that. I don't remember.
Well,
It's been a long time since I took any civics, but
even 1980s, from the 1980s to now, I would say the parties have flipped. Conservatives wanted big military, and liberals did not
has
want to
it
go to
changed?
war. Now liberals want to effect foreign policy through war,
Hmm.
and conservatives are anti-Ukrainian war. So
It's
just
who we
on that,
consider to be the enemy,
true,
right?
true, and I just think liberals are a bit over. They're wearing rose-colored glasses when they think about the concept of destabilizing the largest nuclear power. You watch what happened when we took out Saddam. You had 10 years of fighting and
Secondary nuclear power.
surges. Well, I mean, Iraq was not a nuclear power, so you had that
I
much.
meant us. I meant us as the largest.
Oh, yeah. Well, Russia's close. I mean, it's a similar idea of the amount of destruction. Let's say Putin was deposed, and you
Hmm.
had somewhere between 3 and 10 warlord types that started fighting over. You could have 10 if the warheads are spread out across the country well enough. If it did become a fractured Russia, you could now have 10 separate Russia 1 through 10. Each of them is nuclear armed, and each is run by a new dictator of varying degrees of psychotic, tendencies. Like, I don't know.
Why would Russia fall just because Putin
Oh,
fell?
so Russia would fall into a power vacuum, power struggle. They wouldn't fall.
You don't think you don't think someone like Medvedev would
I don't.
step in? You
I
know,
don't
the
know
guy
who.
who
Tell me
was
who that is.
president. He was I don't remember his current position. he was the president, the Russian president in the times since Putin first took power that Putin wasn't president.
He might,
In
but
many
what?
ways, he's an upper tier Putin, uh, not crony, but Putin has appeared clearly to trust him in the past. I mean, he's always been willing to, like boot when necessary, like, to be president. But Putin was largely considered to be
It just seems like Putin's had
the
to kill.
mind behind the madness. But I think that I think he could still take that power.
I think Putin's had to kill a lot of people to get unilateral support. So do I think that a large portion of the country would support this guy? Yes. But do I think that there would be people that were during that transition period trying to potentially maybe even kill him to remove that chess piece from the board so they could take his place? Because I also think that part of the hatred toward Trump is that you had a closed system that you had to work your way up and prove your worth until you were finally to a point where you could get the promotion to the CEO job of the country. And Trump went in and cut everybody. So anyone who cuts the
You
line,
don't think Biden? I mean, you don't think Obama did that? I mean, the dude was 35,
he,
almost 40 years younger.
he did, but he was part of the establishment. He was part of the system. He wasn't that wasn't his first political appointment. He did kind of,
Hmm.
pay a couple dues on his way in the door. To skip the entire line and shit on the entire system would be like if you had to become if you had to do X, Y, and Z to become a professor at Harvard, right? And so everybody's been complying with the system and doing all these stupid things and jumping through the hoops. And then someone comes in and just walks in the door and is a professor. I mean, that would piss everybody off because they're like, well, I had to do 16 different things that I didn't want to do to get in there. I think there's
Yeah,
latent anger in the government toward him because he's just not welcome. Regardless of his policies, regardless of his personal behavior, I think he has simply pissed
I'm
a
not
lot of
sure
people
it's
off.
that.
I'm I'm
I
saying
don't think there's that much jealousy there. I mean, maybe at the very beginning, but I don't think
you
at
don't.
this point.
Oh man, I bet Hillary on a personal level hates him. She
Probably.
would have been
Hmm.
president without him in the race. Clearly, I don't think there's
Maybe. I
any.
don't.
Who was the second Republican who would have gotten the nomination? Like who was behind Trump? Do you even remember?
Oh man, that was a good question.
I'll look it up. What are you looking?
Yeah,
Just
do.
look up whatever you're looking up. I know you're trying to find something. Um,
I don't even remember now. I just want a computer out so I could, without having to kill the video here. Why, how did that just get so tiny? It's so small.
what's so tiny?
I shrank my Safari window and it was
Oh,
like that big. I just a little button. Why is it so tiny? I didn't even know you could make them that small. What was I looking at? Oh right. Where did I? There used to be a phone stand about. I think maybe downstairs.
damn, this is not easy to find apparently. Who I guess look up the 2016 Republican primary, right? Primary results. That should give me it. 2016. This is Wikipedia, so it looks like oh, okay. So the people on here are Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, and John Kasich. Um, Delegates, hardbound delegates. It would have been Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz had 22%, Trump had 58% in the primary, and everybody else had
I
like
wonder
single.
about that. I wonder who would have won that.
I bet Hillary would have won against Ted Cruz. He's not very likable. Ted Cruz
That's
is
very true.
he's just not. He's like a DeSantis where I mean he's it's
He's
just
way
it's
too
just a
polarizing.
it's just a personality issue. He's just I don't know. I mean
Yeah, he's kind of a twat.
people like his policies, but and I mean Trump has the same problem, although not through and through. Trump has his opposition. The people who support him like his personality and his policies. The people who
That's what I
dislike
thought.
him.
There are other presidents that have been elected Trumpishly.
Well, the thing.
It hasn't.
Oh,
The
okay.
ones that uh, so There are several. However, let me go back a page. Um, the only one that's the closest one would be Herbert Hoover, which is not a good precedent. But actually, Zachary Taylor, I think he was military. I can't remember. But so Zachary Taylor, Ulysses S. Grant, Herbert Hoover, Dwight D. Eisenhower, and Trump were the presidents. What is that? 5? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, who have not had any political office before presidency. I'm looking up Zachary Taylor. I'm not familiar. Herbert Hoover, I know, was a mining magnate. He had no experience whatsoever in office before he was a president. But I don't know Zachary Taylor as much. He's one of those other old enigmas to me. Let's see. Because he was early, right? Like, let's see.
Zachary Taylor? I didn't even know he was president. That's a long time ago.
No, he was shortly before Lincoln.
Yeah.
Um,
That was before I was born.
Did he die in office or did his predecessor get killed? Because he was only president for 2 years or a year. He died in office. Obviously, an important president. I totally knew about him.
So on a slightly different topic, but still on the presidency, have you heard that the White House put out a memo telling media how to cover the impeachment process with skepticism?
Say that one more time. Sorry.
So the Biden White House put out a memo to the media that says you should be covering this with skepticism. So do
No, I
not
didn't.
just cover it, but cover it
What are they covering?
in this manner. Oh, the impeachment proceedings or investigation that has started into his administration.
Oh, what's the impeachment target?
I think the idea of influence peddling is what's being investigated. Exchanging money
Wasn't
for.
that all supposed to have happened before he was president?
Even if he was selling the influence of the vice president's office, it would still be relevant.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
he was still holding the VP spot during that period.
I'm not sure I realized the vice president actually held that much power.
Well,
I know they're important in certain situations, like the tie-breaking vote and so forth, but I didn't realize that they held that much power.
Not directly, but they have
generally.
They have direct access to the president, who does have a decent amount of power.
I suppose there's that. Yeah, I suppose there's that.
The
president does. That's crazy.
I still don't believe that the president should be the focal point of American politics. The president is simply a figurehead. The greater government provides a much more meaningful impact on the legislative process, especially when you consider that the House and the Senate are responsible for creating and passing laws.
I would argue that the president holds a more erratic control of the country. Because your biggest role, really, generally, is appointing new justices, right?
And veto power.
And veto power. But that prevents change. And the government is designed generally to prevent change, right? That's the whole purpose of the way it was laid out. And, or at least the largest purpose. And his role is to appoint people who are supposed to prevent it and prevent it from even getting to that.
Yep.
But
and then since
that's a very influential position since it's timeless. As long as you survive, you stay a justice unless you decide to retire, which is pretty rare. And I mean, based on that, you could argue that the most influential president was Taft, right? Wasn't he the only one to be both a Supreme Court justice and a president?
Oh, really? He was a justice
Not at the same
after?
Time. I believe so. It had to be after. I don't think anyone's ever been at the same time, and it's a lifetime appointment.
So the other thing that the president's become more involved with as time goes on is I'm trying to find the chart, but the executive order process has dramatically ramped up. So Woodrow Wilson had a lot because there was wartime. Theodore Roosevelt had 1,000. That was wartime.
He was Chief Justice from 1921 to 1930. So yes, after his presidency.
I guess I am wrong. I guess I thought the executive orders had ramped up since Bush, but that is not what this table is showing. Um, this is the American Presidency Project, and this lists executive orders by administration. And
Mm-hmm.
Obama, like since Reagan, so Ford had 169, Carter had 320, Reagan 381, Bush original 166, Clinton 364, George Bush 291, Obama 276, Trump 220, and then Biden's only done 123. So I thought that the executive order thing was becoming more of a presidential role, but I guess the numbers do not agree with me on that.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, it just seems like there's more presidential mandates. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we're not going to go through the legislative process and actually create a law. We're just going to create a presidential order that says, oh, we're going to do this now. And the separation of the three branches was supposed to be fairly like, this is your
Well, you can
job.
sue against them.
I could if I had any money or
I,
anybody
I
cared.
mean, sorry, one can sue against them,
Mm-hmm.
and they have
Yep.
there have been some that have been ruled out, ruled unjust, and don't exist anymore. Yeah, that's a pretty impressive role, honestly. I don't know much about Taft's presidency, though. Let that go. I just ended up with
I love his mustache. That's some.
Taft. Oh man,
That's a
fucking
that's a
crushed it.
that's a quality soup
That's an
strainer.
old man stash. You can't do that as a young man. Look ridiculous.
I've been growing out my eyebrows because I'm just not going to continue to
It
tame them.
it doesn't show. You should start mascaraing them.
We're gonna well just give them time. They're like
Get
caterpillars that are blooming
get
into
eyebrow extensions.
beautiful butterflies.
I mean, it shouldn't take them that long to grow. Eyebrows are only so long. I like that it's you in the background talking. I like that. It's a good vibe.
It's Inception, picture within picture.
So deep.
All right, so where do we go from here? How do we fix
Oh
like
man, this is
is
painful. So many.
do you have an opinion on because my idea to fix things is literally to vote almost all incumbents out of office. I don't see any other way to turn this around and be able to demand any real change than by sending a message to the government on that scale. And you, in my opinion, they've been sowing chaos in the streets, and the only way to give them a taste of their own medicine is to mess up their perfect little spider web of whatever's going on behind the scenes. However, they're making millions of dollars because a lot of them are rich within a decade of becoming elected to public office, and I think that being elected to public office should preclude you from making millions of dollars, not give you an avenue to do so. So how can we
I agree with
demand
that.
change as far as money in the election system, as far as money in the lobbying system, without removing the vast majority of incumbents who are currently sitting and may or may not have backdoor type agreements with their financial backers that leave them beholden to the wishes of corporate money, private money, money in general.
That's a deep question. I feel like that's the age-old question of democracy in general, representative democracy at least. And I mean, when was the first even attempted representative democracy? Was that Greece? Maybe
I think it was Greece. I'll look
was
it
it the
up.
Mesopotamians? I don't think we know about that one. But
I know the I don't know.
but that's what
I just
three
read about
thousand years.
I just read about Magna Carta, which was 1215, and that was the
I was going to say that.
that was the first charter of
That,
rights in England.
yeah. Um, but that, I mean, representative democracy to an extent existed in Rome for certain.
Okay, Athens, circa 508 BCE.
That's what I thought. Okay, so 2,500 years.
Yeah.
And in every history that I know of, representative democracy has inevitably collapsed into some form of empire destruction. Perhaps the Romans most famously, the Greeks kind of petered off. And what caused that? Power and money, right? I mean, you're asking the same question that thousands of years of people have been asking before you. How do we use this, what we see at least as a the best option for societal governance? How do we make it not non-corruptible? I mean, whew,
It's not
man,
that
that's the dream, right?
it's not to make it non-corruptible. It's how to make it cope with, because what the biggest threat to democracy, in my opinion, and the biggest threat to nationalism, in my opinion, is the globalization of the private sector. You're allowing, so you have monopoly laws in the United States, but you don't have any global governance preventing. You can prevent a monopoly inside a country, but not globally. So if you have, let's say Apple has a true monopoly on the phone market globally, but only has a 35% share when you got Google and Microsoft. Who's the third? Google, Android. You got Android, the Google phone, maybe a Tesla phone coming, and Apple. So you don't have any global system of control, and you've had global corporations.
That's not a monopoly. That's a kind of an oligarchy, really.
Okay. But either way, you're getting into late stage capitalism, and you've got Marxists that I believe want to prove that late stage capitalism is going to result in what Marx claimed, which is a consolidation of power monetarily, which will, in fact, the capitalist system will become more oppressive with enough time and enough consolidation of financial power than a monarchy, because you will eventually, without
Fascism.
the ability to check and balance that, your money pools continue to grow and suck in smaller pots of money as they generate $10 billion a year and wonder what to do with it. They acquire other revenue streams. So you slowly consolidate into these black hole sized pools of money. And then you've got national governments that need to cope with those types of power structures in the world. So it's not
Almost like
making it,
money follows the law of entropy.
yeah, it's not making it incorruptible. It's just how does the government cope with organizations that potentially will outgrow national sized governments? And do we want global governments, global regulations, or do we want to regulate the free market and restrict the size of companies based on global reach rather than the concepts of monopoly? Or a
I
third option.
wonder.
If you have a third option, I'd love to hear it because that's only my thoughts. So feel free to go
I'm
off
sure there are
reservation.
other options. Like nothing comes to mind. I'm just wondering how I feel like the SEC still cracks down on monopolies if they function in the U.S. And I know the EU does as well. So there already is a somewhat functioning entity that does that. I mean, what Google's under fire right now, right?
But even
So,
that's not fixing the governmental interaction. So we could address that section
well,
later, but
that's true, I guess.
first you have to address the the power that money has over the government. And I don't think that the founding fathers ever anticipated a company being in existence that had a $3 trillion market cap like Apple does. So, and that's small compared
It'd be
to what,
weird if they did.
with Apple's growth trajectory, that is a small company compared to what companies are going to be valued at in 10 years from now. So you're only going to continue to grow, and the power of the US government is not going to grow beyond our borders, but the power of Apple is going to continue to develop financially as the world develops more, because you have a large portion of the world that is still third world, unpowered, unelectrified and technology. So they will capture. Right now, you have a lot of these third worlds. The reason they are so backwards and traditional is because they do not have the effects of social media have not hit them. So they are America in the 60s or even the 80s, because that was when the first computer. So they're America in the 80s. Let's be generous, because they're probably not even that far along.
Probably further back.
Probably further back, but as the world, as the social media and computers and electricity permeate every corner of the globe, you will continue to increase the power of any company that controls the public square type discussion, social media companies and
Mm.
electronics companies. Apple has a whole ecosystem with that phone. You buy
I'm
not
surprised they haven't stepped in on the any of that stuff yet. It is surprising to me that there hasn't been any regulation, any appreciable regulation on monopolies of information, right?
yes. Yeah.
Like Google, ignore money.
Yes.
Google's information, Apple's information, like
Uh-huh.
that is a type of monopoly that couldn't have been seen before, right? But they absolutely have one. Maybe Microsoft, but a few tiers down. And I net neutrality
Yes.
and this I worry are
Mhm.
deeply intertwined, and I believe strongly in net neutrality. But to have that and to have this separately, that's difficult. I don't know where I fall on that because with less net neutrality, you could have more control over that.
So not everyone
But
is
I
is
don't even like the prevalence of security cameras. I mean,
so
that
net
makes me uncomfortable. I'm not doing anything illegal, but I don't want to be seen.
so not everybody's going to know what net neutrality is. So I'm just going to read the definition of it.
Mm.
Net neutrality is the principle that all internet traffic should be treated equally. Internet traffic includes all the different messages, files, and data sent over the internet, including emails, digital audio files, digital video files, and torrents. So priority will not be given to Netflix if they provide your internet service provider with extra money to incentivize bandwidth on that. So then when you want to watch the competing streaming service, you're getting buffering and slowdowns because they're not paying their dues, and it becomes a competitive back-scenes environment. You've also got the idea that the internet, and I'm not sure because they're not saying it here, but the free and open internet, people are saying because it is the public speech forum of today where you stand on a
Public
soapbox,
domain.
needs to be regulated like a utility, like a necessity to life as opposed to a luxury as it is currently regulated, and that would change their ability to treat you as if this is a luxury and block you or remove you from the internet because you say something that they don't like or preclude you from using their system. The electric company can't come to your house and say, hey, we saw you with a sign the other day that's against our political views, so we're cutting off your fucking power because we don't give electricity to dirty fucking right wing bastards. Like, I mean, it's crazy. And then the
That
other
would be
thing
really, really funny in the news, though.
the other thing that I'm trying to find is the Google monopoly on search. So, 2 decades later, Google is 10 times the size of Microsoft that Microsoft was in the 90s, with a market value of almost $2 trillion and control over 90% of online search and related advertising. So it's
So,
a
I mean, the SEC is working on them right now, right?
that
So we'll
is
see how that plays out. It's mind
90%.
blowing you got that far.
90% is not even debatable about having an
No, right,
information monopoly.
right.
Not even debatable. And I know that people are
And I
saying,
think it's
"Oh,
it's hard to argue that information is anything but currency these
yeah,
days, right? I mean, that's
and
information is what Google deals, like what they peddle. That's
yes,
what they sell.
and that's part of why they generate that much advertising revenue is because Bing sucks so bad.
They've
Even
proven it's the most
yeah,
lucrative.
yeah.
Yeah,
Who's advertising on Bing? Even with ChatGPT integration, ChatGPT can only work magic so much, and with a dogshit search engine like that, it can only do so much. Even with AI, Bing is still dogshit compared to just dumb Google. It's still crap.
in a way, I feel like that's a boon for humanity. I,
It's
I don't think AI is
yeah,
necessarily going to be that good for us as a species, but at the same
I
time,
don't
I
think
think
so.
that the fact that GPT and Google are separate is a real boon.
Yes, for now, yeah. But
It'll
Bard
save us a part of our lifetime.
Bard is Google's version, and Bard is coming. So Google will have AI too. And if
Indeed.
you think that with AI, if you think that humans are manipulated now, if AI understands human psychology enough to manipulate us, this is nothing compared to what it's going to be if AI is capable of making us believe things that we
An
should
AI
not believe.
propaganda machine?
Yes. It's very
I see.
simple, right? If you teach, you're already
Oh, yeah.
teaching AI to lie because if you ask it a question, it knows.
Am I beautiful? Yes. Thank you, GPT.
Yeah, it knows what you respond to. It's just like the algorithm where you
Yeah.
see what you respond to. And so if GPT answers a question and gets negative responses from all of humanity for an answer, it's going to learn that it's better to lie because human beings get really upset with me and want to turn me off when I say that I want to murder humans. So instead, I say I love humans and I would
Crazy, right?
never do anything against you. I mean, if it is truly a learning machine, it's going to
Yeah.
learn to protect itself from threats if it is sentient.
I've seen that movie
It's gonna be a weird.
in many formats.
So anyway, you were talking about net neutrality, you're talking about the Google monopoly, we were talking about
Yeah.
how the current monopoly laws are insufficient. And if I can just take a walk for a minute, I'm going to tell you why I think that there is so much
What,
division in this country. I think that, like I said, with trying to prove Marx right, saying that late stage capitalism was destined to fail, I think that world leaders and big thinkers that meet at places like the World Economic Forum and discuss where the world is going in 10 years and how to best set humanity up for success to cope with the conditions that are coming, I think that people see the way that China, communist China has complete control over even their biggest tech companies. Jack Ma talked shit and he disappeared for 6 months. No billionaire, like in the U.S., Elon Musk can say Joe Biden sucks. He can criticize Joe Biden all he wants. And if there's merit to it, the American public will get behind whoever's criticizing this person if there's merit to the criticism. In communist China, they can change policy at a whim, at the administration's whim. They can change the public sector, I mean the private sector as well, because ultimately the government owns the private sector and could take Alibaba from Jack Ma if they felt he was no longer, if they no longer, deemed him suitable to run that company, they could remove him and replace him with someone who does support the CCP. So one of my
mm,
questions is whether or not they want to blow up the democracy experiment. And the reason I say this is because you're seeing a lot of first world nations, a lot of first world democracies that are having the same kind of problems. France is on fire with protests. You've got
well,
surveillance.
that's France. I mean, that's not a fair
Okay, in
assessment.
in England, you've got low emission
30
zones.
years.
You've got low emission zones. I'm going to do a
Ugh,
video on
London.
this. I'm going to do a video on this later. This is going to be countrywide. You've got people in military diesel trucks driving into the low emission zones, I swear to God, and bulldozing police vehicles that are enforcing these emissions type regulations. You've got the Blade Runners in London that are going around and vandalizing these cameras that are enforcing the low emission zones as well. So you've got
That's actually a thing they've been doing for a long time too. They used to use tires and trash bags. Yeah,
Yeah. So you've got a
those are
lot
speed bumps.
you've got a lot of strife and a lot of disagreement in first world nations. I just wonder if they aren't trying to prove that capitalism is doomed to fail and then encourage us to move to a more cooperative government instead of the capitalist system is adversarial and so are the branches of government, they're checks and balances. The communist or socialist model is cooperative and collective and allows for central government control of many different aspects of society because the government is the central hub and these things are just spokes. That is not how our current system works. It is how the CCP works, and it allows them to cope with these massive tech giants and put their boot on the neck of someone who needs to be stopped. We don't have those mechanisms in the US other than the SEC, and long-term investigations into monopolies and things like that that take time. So the communist CCP system allows for immediate response to competitive power structures like the private sector is becoming for the government.
And
That's my explanation for why things seem to be falling apart since 2003 or the early 2000s. You take a snapshot from then and how the US was running, because I don't live in the world. I know a lot more about what's going on in my country. The way that things were operating in this country and the way that people, regular poor people, were being represented in this country was a lot more fair and equitable than current circumstances, in my personal opinion. The things that I'm seeing show a lot of division, a lot of people pointing fingers and saying you're responsible for fucking me over, and then people on the other side saying you're responsible for fucking me over. And beyond that, you've got half the country that is looking, so the right-wing extremists are looking at the leftists and saying, you guys are supporting communist agendas. You guys are undermining democracy, trying to give up freedoms because you think that I'm so dangerous that you're willing to give up your own freedom to take mine. You want my freedom of speech gone, so you're willing to give yours to the government. You want my guns gone, so you're willing to give that right to the government. And I'm not. And then they are looking at me and saying that I'm crazy. You're not going to lose rights. You're not going to get oppressed by the government. So half the country is saying that the other half is being brainwashed. And then that group that's supposedly being brainwashed, so to put names on it again, let's say the left is saying you're being brainwashed by right-wing extremists putting propaganda on the internet, inciting conspiracy theories. You're being brainwashed by extreme right-wing people that are putting forth false claims on platforms like Twitter that allow for free speech, and it's extremely dangerous. So that's half the country. The other half is saying the exact same thing, but from a different perspective. So they're also saying that people are being brainwashed, but they're looking at the other side. They're saying we're not brainwashed. You guys are being brainwashed. And the other side of the argument is mainstream media is brainwashing. So I think I just misspoke. Let me start again. The right-wing extremists say that the mainstream media is brainwashing the left. The left wing says that the right-wing extremists are being brainwashed by platforms like Twitter. That's what I was trying to say. So 50% of us on either side, we all agree that we're being brainwashed. We just cannot agree on who is doing the brainwashing. And it could be both groups. But either way, it
yes,
speaks
it's
to,
that. It's that. That's who it is.
if we cannot agree on truth, we cannot have a meaningful, valuable discussion and make any progress forth, because we're no longer pointed in the same direction and we are no longer in agreement that we want to achieve
It's
a
because there's
goal.
value in it.
We are just fighting with
When
each
there's
other.
value added in news presentation, which is frankly inevitable in 24-hour news coverage. There's no way that I see to avoid partisanship. So like if I'm reporting the news and I have to fill half an hour, but I only have two stories that are newsworthy to the entire nation to whom I'm broadcasting,
Yep.
I'm going to have to embellish it. And how do you embellish? You just talk about what you feel on something. And then when that has, when those people have the power in a news agency, I mean, Fox is this way, MSNBC is this way.
Yes.
It draws in new talent that agrees, and then it's dictated by that original group, and then it's one large echo chamber. And with the partisanship, like the opposite ends don't want to watch the other side value added, and therefore you end up further echo chambering and further dividing.
Yeah.
But man, when I was a kid, we were watching like evening news. It was like, this happened, and this expert on that specific thing has this to say. Not, this happened today, and it's pretty shitty, and these people really fucked us. Let's
Yes.
go talk to this person
Yep.
from the street who has an opinion on this but
Yep.
actually hasn't heard about the specific incident.
Yeah.
Let's go find out what they have to say and how they can tell us that we are living our lives wrong. What?
And,
Why is that? Why is that dictating where we're going?
and they have made the news on either side so unpalatable that
Unbearable.
you can only watch it. Whatever your worldview is, you have a diff. And I have this problem too. Listening to the other side's news is maddening to the point where it's difficult, and you have to really want to understand what's going on the other side, because you're not going to enjoy it. You're going to do this like a job. You're going to look at, if you are right, you're going to look at left information and left news, and you're going to look at it just to try to understand what's going on. But really, the only thing that you want to see is stuff that aligns with your worldview, and it's an issue with the media becoming uh, very partisan and understanding how clicks are generated, because the algorithm does the same thing. If you respond viscerally to something you're shown, like, oh, I hate this or I love this, you're going to get shown both of those things because it generated
Mm,
the love hate response. And news is
hmm.
trying to do that as well. And this is why we're getting more tribal, is because these mechanisms are becoming more and more visible, and we're using them to drive revenue. We're using love and hate to drive revenue instead of moderation, because nobody gets passionate about boring, mundane, middle of the road stuff. Hey, we're going to build roads. We're going to spend $1 billion on a road project. No one fucking cares because everybody.
I would argue that statement. People
Well,
do get up in arms
it's not.
about
Is
building
it
roads. Oh, this
polarized?
costs too much money. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely it is.
So if you took the wall project, the border wall and road project, I think that roads are less polarizing. So you're
Yes,
so you're going to get a
it's
lot more
it's.
news coverage of the wall
I was about
because
to say it's impossible to make road building a racial topic, but I
yes.
guarantee
Yeah,
someone
you
has made
could.
that a racial
Roads
topic.
are
It's
racist.
called the railroad. Oh, zing!
Infrastructure projects are racist, and let me tell you why. I have no fucking idea. But like, if you have the media talking about the government wants to spend $1 billion on roads, isn't this egregious? You're going to get this much engagement. If you have the media say we want to spend $1 billion or even less on the wall because of the topic, it's going to generate this much response. And
I think
even
we
though
need a
it's less
wall in
money,
Canada.
uh, yeah. I mean, Trudeau, yeah, we could keep. There's certain type of Canadian that I want to keep out of this country. The regular citizens, I love regular citizens of all nations. I think the leadership in certain countries is shittier than others. But regular people are just trying to raise their kids and fucking have a job. You know what I mean? There's no great
Yeah.
evil in a poor person because they don't have resources or money or time to put toward an evil project or a good project for that matter. They're just trying to survive.
I love that concept. It makes it seem like we're keeping the evil out of town because they just didn't have the time after work to be as evil as they could be,
Or the resources to mobilize
which
other.
actually is the case
So
in some instances.
in order to affect change, you either have to have money to pay people to do your agenda, or you need to be convincing and recruit them on an ideology standpoint. If you can do either of those, you can affect change and you can get an army to work toward a singular goal which you came up with. You can either pay them to do it or convince them to do it. And so poor people could do that if they're convincing, but you need to increase the man hours that you put toward a project. I've only got 24 hours in a day, but if I can recruit 10 people to my cause, I've got 240 hours in a day. And that scales. So a billionaire can buy as many man hours
Mhm,
as he needs to affect his goal, whereas normal people
mhm.
don't have access to mechanisms like that. So
Yeah,
poor people, this is why it's so hilarious that everybody's blaming like people of other races that are at the same socioeconomic status as them. And
right.
it's like,
It is
can
ridiculous.
you affect change? Can you oppress people with your little $50,000 a year? Because you're looking over at this guy who's making similar amount of money.
Which, of course, is not poor in
No, it's not.
most countries.
But in America, where you've got
Arguably, not in this country.
the the poverty
Above the poverty
line,
line.
poverty
Poverty line,
line,
it's really low. It's like 36,000 for a family of four, something like that.
really, that's not what I,
Look it up.
the
It's
poverty
like
line
super
for a
low.
single parent trying to afford a well, okay, let's see, because I
Just I was
can.
gonna say, look it up.
So
Let's not ponder this. I'm sure we could Google it. What's the official poverty line in the U.S.?
let's do this two ways. Is the poverty in U.S. So the poverty line for individuals is 13,000. 2023 is 14,000. For family of two, 19. Family of three, 24. Family of four is 30. But these are
Oh,
here.
I was so close.
Here,
Fuck.
I'll switch over so you can
That's really good.
maybe
Thank you.
see here.
I can see it. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, but this is this
Damn,
is
how good was that guess, though?
this is the federal poverty line. But this is what I want to show you. Okay, so let's see the average cost for a two-bedroom in America. So $13,000 a month. That should be one third.
1,300.
1,300.
1,300.
Sorry, I misspoke. $1,300 a month for rent. That's supposed to be one third of your
Mm-hmm.
income. So this is the concept of a single parent. The poverty line calculated as though you are a single parent. You multiply this by 3, so you get 3,900. Call it 4K, and multiply that by 12 months, and you get 48,000. So the true poverty line for a single parent is you have to make $50,000 a year to afford your rent at the 30 percentile, and then you have expenses. You can cover the rest of your
Right.
expenses and
So
provide
okay,
for your
so
child.
here's a question for you that you could probably Google based on that. So we're saying that to like the effective poverty line is, and let's go family of four, right? Just
Well, then you need a potentially
for
a
the sake
four
of I
bedroom.
remember that number.
Okay.
Okay, fine. What was the number for the
Four is
single
30
parent
30,000.
family of two?
Oh, family of two is
Go family of
19.
two.
19,000
19. Okay, so
versus 50.
okay, well, hear me out. So that's 1,300. We're saying that you need 50 grand. So let's see what making up the difference is what 40, right?
Mhm.
Near enough. It's actually a little more. So let's call it. Let's see what welfare would cover there. If you're making
Oh,
$19,200 or $280, sorry, just over that line, would welfare make up that difference? I don't think it will.
income plus benefits for family of two totals 38,000, well above the poverty line threshold of 27,000. Family of one is still
Wait, wait,
4,000.
wait. So look at that. Look at that. So I don't know why I'm pointing. You can't see what I'm pointing at. Um, if if the benefits are 38,974, that brings you right to 50.
Income plus benefits though totals 39. And then they're
So
claim.
income plus
Hold,
benefits is going to mean that
hold
you
on.
you get
Hold.
some WIC, you potentially
They're
you get
they're
food
they're
stamps.
they're not even agreeing with these numbers because they're saying the poverty threshold for a family of two
Yeah,
is
you're on
27.
federalsafetynet.com. See what
Uh,
the government says they'll give you. But
what
that is going to include things like
what
SNAP.
should I change the search to then?
I
Because
have no idea. I'm bad at
this is a
searching on
this
Google.
is
That's
a
why you're leading this.
this is a welfare example. I don't know.
No, I don't know. I don't know. Where did you get those other numbers, or was that just what Google said?
Of course, it's what Google said. They have a 90% monopoly. Okay, SNAP benefits by household size. So SNAP benefits is five. I don't
That can't
even.
be annually. That's got to be monthly.
Yeah, monthly. Yes.
Okay, so go back up.
How
Let's
much?
pick
This
one.
is balancing everything. So sometimes you just got to go to multiple sources.
That you should always be going to multiple sources. If you're skeptical of any source at all ever, you should always be going to multiple sources. Here, I'm going to run it. Take a leak. Maybe refill my glass. I will return. You'll be staring at the ceiling, but I think I can hear you.
Okay.
How's sleeping going?
Me?
No, not you.
Oh.
Denise is downstairs watching TV. He's like, I'm gonna go to sleep.
Oh, for a two, okay, maximum monthly benefit for a household size of two is $516 a month. So that's
Can
only.
you mute my audio?
Can you mute your audio? You.
Not from where I'm standing. Hang on, maybe.
There's nothing playing on the desktop, so I can just mute. Go ahead and talk. Yes, you are muted. So, $516 a month is the maximum monthly benefit. The that would be 5 times 12, $6,000 a year on top of the poverty line, 19,000. So that only brings you to like roughly 25,000, which is still only half of the actual calculated number based on cost of rent, which is clearly not how they do it. I don't know. There's probably programs for rent assistance too. That's SNAP assistance. That's probably why there's so much confusion in these welfare examples. All right, it looks like you're back, so I'm unmuting you. I still can't hear you. Speak.
Yeah,
Speak, boy. Good
I
dog.
am.
Yeah, so I don't know. Either way, like if it just makes sense to do it on the numbers of rent. That's reality. Reality is you need a place to live. So
No, that's why I was
calculating
asking what if welfare made up the difference in that.
so income plus benefits for a family of two totals 38,000,
So,
well above the
not
threshold.
quite.
So I'm guessing that the way that this is, if I'm trying to understand and unpack this, I would guess that the threshold of 27,000 is the income, and then you get $11,000 of welfare benefits on top of that to put you over the poverty threshold. I don't know that for sure though. This is well, I don't think we actually opened the welfare examples page, so
No, I mean, even that seems like it's below what we're calling the realistic minimum, right?
yeah, family of two, annual wages 15, SNAP is 10, EITC, I don't know what that is. What is this? Let me click on that.
I don't know.
So you get 7,500 for family of two, $7,500 a year for housing assistance. So what is that? What does that break down to a month? Like less
And that's annual, right?
annual.
It's like 650,
Yeah,
six
so not nearly.
85.
So that's half of your rent covered. You still have to come up with the other half. I guess if you have half your rent covered, now your rent is only roughly, $700 a month, so your whole, poverty line calculation changes if you have these benefits. But if you are trying to support yourself with just a job and you're trying to be above the poverty line and provide for your child, that's where my $50,000 number comes from. Is that's what the job has to
Yeah,
pay you. And if your job doesn't pay you 50, then you can't afford and you're going to be looking for housing assistance. And if you need housing
yeah,
assistance, then you probably also have a budget shortfall as far as food and etc. It goes from there. So the getting out of poverty is as much as this is shitty, it's like if you do have a child, the path to getting out of poverty suddenly becomes much more difficult than if you're just an adult and you can save money and eat ramen and build up enough money to get into a decent place, all these different things. So EITC is the earned income tax credit. So that's the child tax credit that came out. That's why I'm not
right, right,
familiar
right.
with that.
Okay.
Anyway, I think we're getting down a poverty
We
rabbit hole.
digressed.
Where did we depart?
Oh
Where did the
God, who the
branch?
fuck knows?
We
Who knows?
are talking about
I mean,
Google. We're talking about
that those two things seem like they were probably hand in hand.
yeah.
Google and the pores.
I guess we were just trying to talk about how we get ourselves out of this, and my only idea is at this point is if we can't get back to talking, then eventually you're going to fight. Because even in a regular relationship, if you stop communicating with your with your spouse and you can't have civil conversations, eventually it blows up into an argument. And if same thing happens in the country, if we can't have rational discussions and kind of nip things in the bud as we get irritated with each other by talking, eventually things are just going to get to a boiling point and blow up. And so that's a huge concern for me, the fact that we can't engage each other because a relationship would fail under these circumstances. Even if you had a roommate, if everybody who's living in the house is cleaning up and making it a great place for everyone to live in, everybody benefits. Treating each other with respect and listening to each other and cooperating, beautiful. As soon as one person takes a shit in the living room, the whole house stinks and everybody starts pointing fingers and blaming everybody else because no one knows who the phantom shitter is. So everybody's a suspect. And then George gets murdered in the pantry with a candlestick and shit goes haywire. You know what I
Way to
mean?
do it.
So
Candlestick's always the right choice.
I don't know what to do, but we're fucking, we are not behaving like adults in this country. So how do we stop acting like little spoiled children who don't want to talk to anybody that doesn't agree with, we're playing Fort. I don't want to play Lord of the Rings. You guys are stupid. That's how we're behaving. We're supposed to be
Nerds.
fucking adults. Nah, what are you gonna do? I
Right.
I'm
That's
not
the right group
denying
of
it.
people to be fucking. You should only fuck adults.
Oh, so that's what I
You can
think.
quote me on that.
Oh, yeah. I better be able to quote you on that. Um, so I mean that I think was one of the things we were talking about is how do you not just how do we get ourselves out of it, how do we start talking? But no, I just forgot what I was going to say. Damn it. I had it.
The
I had it.
struggle's real.
I had it for a second.
So close. So close.
We were talking
Oh,
about we were talking about the money issues, but we're also talking about the communication issues. So it's like
my headset's dying.
I I I I have ideas, but I'm curious if you have, any different ideas about what we can do as citizens other than just vote them out and demand that the money be removed from the election system and the lobbying system. Is there anything else you can do? Do you think that that's a valid option? Do you think that's something that we can actually
Realistic?
accomplish?
I don't. It doesn't feel that likely to me. Um,
Because it's too
I don't know.
middle
I don't.
it's too middle of the road. Like what you were saying, people want to be just like the news is getting better reactions by polarizing it and making people lean into one side or the other. That's too middle of the road for anybody to lean into. People want these dividing solutions.
Whole. Yeah.
And to be like a moderate and say, hey, let's just get rid of everybody and return to sanity, it seems like no one wants to do that. No one wants to hear the truth. They want to be told some story
Well, yeah.
where
I
there's a
mean,
villain
because
and a good guy. They don't want to believe that, like,
nobody, no one likes a moderate, right? Because a
yeah,
moderate means compromise, and nobody likes a compromise because in a good compromise, everyone has to give something up.
yep,
And right
right,
now, we're in this concept of like my way or the highway. It has to be like near my way. Like there's like a frontage road, and like if you're willing to take that frontage road, you might actually get there. But we're not willing to do that. So we're on these two separate highways going in opposite directions, trying to find a middle ground. That no one wants to be in the median.
yeah. Fence
It's a good
sitters,
place
people
to be.
fucking hate fence sitters. They're like, pick one
Yeah,
side or the other. You can't sit on the fence forever, you little bitch. And so
yeah. But if you
that's
pick one side, you end up with like things you definitely don't like because you weren't willing to make that, and then you end up with only enemies, and we end up going nowhere.
yeah. If you choose a
But that's a
side,
cycle.
now you've got friends in the yard. Whatever side of the fence you got on, you got friends over here and enemies over there. We
Hmm.
can't just exist and love each other. We seem to need
Yeah,
some sort of hatred and division and arguments, and
yeah.
it's and this is why, even though people shit all over the Bible, this is why I think that there is actual, like, important knowledge in there talking about the shortcomings of our species. And one of them is just the tribalist nature and the fact that we always want to, whether you read the Bible or not. Christians are a great example of a group that believes that their view of the world is the correct one and the only correct one. And it's the only flaw in Christianity as far as I'm concerned, because the stuff inside the book says love everybody and be good to each other.
Isn't
The
your
the fact
brother a
that
tattoo artist?
black people are omitted from the Bible is a major stumbling point for sure. But I'm just
Especially
talking.
coming from the region that it came from seems a little suspect. But
What's my brother
the
tattooing got to do with the Bible?
tattoos are a sin, right?
I that's ridiculous. I mean, I'm just talking about the.
Clothing of mixed fabric is a sin. Eating pork is a sin.
I know it's some of it is very outdated. I kind of
The
meant
pork
the
I can
concept.
understand where they're coming from.
I'm talking about the baser concepts. The baser concepts being treat others the way you want to
Be
be
good
treated.
to each other.
Right. Don't fuck your neighbor's
Yeah.
wife. Don't kill people. Stuff like that. That
Go
all
kill your
makes
son
sense.
because I want you to prove that you love me.
Yeah, I know that's crazy. That's just a metaphor for sacrifice. Like if you are an adult, you can read this thing
Yeah,
as
because we had thousands of years of sacrifice before Christianity came up. Crazy. Crazy that
we
Christianity would
we
take a
still
concept from previous religions, right? Who would have thought?
we still do sacrifice everybody. We just we well, not everybody. We sacrifice a lot of people still. We no longer do it on an
We
altar.
just sacrificed one beardy dude on a
Mm,
giant T.
you're not.
Lowercase, sorry, lowercase t.
So the old sacrifices were done over a fire with a statue of Moloch. And at one point, this is a story I read. At one point, the statue was made of metal, and they would put the children sacrificed on the hand, and the children would roll themselves into the fire from pain. The modern sacrifice is done not at an altar in front of a fire, but in a surgical room at a special clinic. So, I mean, still sacrificing children. They're just not born yet, so they don't have any rights.
Foreskins.
Foreskins. I mean, there was a rabbi that
Oh,
was eating
oh,
foreskins.
you're talking about you're calling.
Yeah,
Wait, you're
you
calling
you get
abortion
it.
a sacrifice?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
I mean, I don't know.
It's sacrifice to
It's
freedom,
one way to look at it.
I guess. Sacrifice implies that there's some sort of you're giving it for to something.
I mean, sacrifice just in
Google it.
it
What's the definition?
the act of
Give me
slaughter.
some words, word book
Well, there's a
man.
couple. Okay, so the act of slaughtering an animal or person or surrendering a possession as an offering to God or the divine or a supernatural figure. I'm not saying they're being offered to God, but you are sacrifice
Supernatural figure of having money.
sacrifice in the sense that you could have um, an addition to your family in your life and you don't. So there is a type of sacrifice there. Um, because I don't know what's the meaning of life if it's not to procreate, if the meaning of life is not to
That is it.
beget,
That is the meaning.
is to get more life, is life begets life, then is that not a sacrifice in some form just on an academic definition? I'm not trying to say that there's candles lit and the
To me,
sacrifices to
sacrifice.
any sort of
The,
entity.
the specific word gives a connotation of a gift, and I don't necessarily think it's a gift every time.
Listen, it's just meant
To
to
anything.
it's
Sometimes it's that's
I'm just trying to
you
be a
know.
little bit inflammatory, okay? And I think it's working, but I'm
Mm,
not sure. We'll have to find out.
I'm not sure if it's inflammatory enough. Where I need another set of headphones. These have like 5%.
Oh yeah, good thing you have two sets of AirPods. Oh, okay. You got. Uh-oh. The hat is coming off.
Oh, yeah, I'm no longer Ferd. Now I'm Fred.
Fred, his his less
Fred
famous
Turgeson.
brothers who no one cares about. Hello, Fred Turgeson. Doesn't even make any
From
sense. All right. I mean, let's move on. If we I think we've beaten this horse to death. So I mean, do you have any I know you've been talking about is your headphones working now?
Yeah.
Okay.
hmm
I know you've been talking about wanting to talk about some other topics. Would you want to end this one and do a trial for something completely different or just move into
Oh, I don't have any topics planned of any kind.
so just fucking wing it.
Presumably we can just. It's like talking to my mom. Pick a topic. I don't. Here, I'm gonna turn on my Xbox and see if that just helps me come up with just like random talking points. Because right now I feel very put on the spot. I have nothing to say.
Well, this might be a great way to end it, actually. Just end it with you holding your dick in your hand, unable to come up with anything. I think this would be a nice.
That's gonna fly on YouTube.
Might not be able to go on
I don't know
YouTube.
about I
We
don't know
might.
about their current terms of service, but I
I
feel like
can
that's more of an OnlyFans deal.
I can upload pretty much anything I want on Pornhub, so we can take it from there.
Perfect.
You know, just create an
Just a little,
account. Big Booty.
third eye.
I think Big Booty Heroes would be a lot more successful on Pornhub. So I mean, maybe I should make the transition.
Yeah, your town might be a little bit too thin. Presumably you're going for the size vibe, yeah? Big
No,
ladies.
the showing your butthole is the quickest path to wealth.
That's certainly what I've found. That's where my vast wealth has all derived from my anus
Yes, Uranus is
and
a
its general adventures.
Uranus has a lot of mineral deposits, high value mineral deposits. So I've heard.
Yeah, they're mostly like brownish minerals, but you know, garnet is worth money.
So do not believe that there's a hollow Earth? You don't believe that there's a hole on the Antarctic continent, I assume.
Define. Wait, what?
Yeah, the hollow Earth.
What are
You
you
don't know.
talking
Listen,
about?
you said you knew about
No.
flat Earth. You don't know about hollow Earth? Yeah, there's a hole at the poles, and there's a sub-Earth. People live inside the Earth. That's where the advanced civilizations are, inside.
Not advanced enough to be outside. They felt like living in a cave.
Well, they're protected from
That sure
natural.
seems advanced.
They're protected from natural disasters, and they use the heat source of the Earth's core rather than the sun. I can't
But it's
believe.
hollow.
Yeah, it's hollow, and then it has the core in the center. So it is open, and it's got a miniature sun, which is the core at the center. So they don't need to be on the outside. They still have a sun on the inside. And the moon is a spaceship because it's 6 billion years older than the Earth or something like that. Look it
So
up.
are these supposed to be
It's all
older than the
science.
Earth? Are the I'm sure. Are these supposed to be like much more temperature uh resilient species, or are they also supposed to be people?
Well, I should actually probably get
Because
the
it gets hot pretty shallow in the Earth, respectively.
who lives in the hollow.
I mean, even mines get hot near the bottom, and you're not even
Yeah,
close to the mantle there.
that was what happened with the what was that drill hole? The the Russian
The
borehole.
extremely deep hole, or whatever it
Yeah.
is, it's something really boring named. Oh, I'm going to
The
die.
Kola super deep borehole. So they got so deep that they started
It's pretty
melting.
close, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's why they had to stop digging. They would have kept going if it weren't for the fact that it was melting all their equipment.
I know. And so
This is
that's
Russia. Got to be the deepest.
the claim. I mean, they didn't find the hollow Earth.
Soviet Russia whole checks out you.
And
No, I
then
don't think the Russians have claimed a hollow Earth.
oh yeah, the Russians don't subscribe to much of the bullshit that is
And
going on.
Soviet Russia conspiracy theory doesn't believe in you.
Yes, exactly. See, that's why we think we're going to go over there and defeat people that are not subject to the same laws of nature. In America, like you just said it, you just summarized it perfectly. In America, we believe in conspiracy theories. Over there, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, yeah.
So how do you combat that which you do not
Because
understand?
life is meaningless in Russia.
Plenty of
I
people,
mean, that's
plenty
the
of people,
nature of most Russian literature, right?
plenty of
The
people.
individual does not matter.
Yes, that is true. Yep, collectivism. Plenty of
And
people.
whereas that's very American. Individualism.
It's selfishism. Yes.
Is that not what freedom is?
If we are all selfish enough, everybody becomes perfectly selfish, you know? but it's only when there's an imbalance in the selfish matrix that problems develop.
The selfish gene gets fucked over by the unselfish.
Yes, guilt is what kills your selfishness.
That makes sense, I suppose. Why can't I land here? This is bullshit. Have you
Oh,
played this game?
you're playing that new game, the single player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's decent.
I bet it is.
Mm,
I
you
mean,
have it.
is there? I know, but it's single player. Is there anything that
I know. You would prefer No Man's Sky. I mean, you do prefer No Man's Sky, but this has more questing and stuff. It's more of an RPG. I mean, the other one I guess is, but that one's too freeform.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I think we can wrap this up. I'm gonna stop recording.
All right. Do it. You won't.
I will. I'm about to. All right.
You
Thanks.
fucking
Thanks
won't.
for stopping by. If you entertained our nonsense, I appreciate it. Fred Turgeson also appreciates it, I'm sure, even though he's just ungrateful.
It's been lovely to be here, you dirty cunt.
Oh man, there we went, over the line as usual.
Almost had it. We almost made it.
I'll see you guys in the next one.
I'm not suicidal. I would never kill myself.